You can't do it all. And to be honest, you're not that good at it. I would have rather been skating anyway.
Welcome to another episode of Richer Lives, aka the show that teaches you how to use money to live your best life. I'm Vivian Tu, also known as your Rich BFF, and today's guest is the one, the only Tony Hawk. Yes, the real Tony Hawk.
Thank you.
You are a skateboarding legend, but for folks at home who may not know, you are the owner and founder of Birdhouse. You are the winner of 64 skateboarding competitions. That seems like a lot.
Over the course of many, many years.
The inventor of 89 tricks and the face of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, one of the longest running game franchises in history. I need to know, do people still come up to you in the airport and tell you that you look like Tony Hawk?
Always, yes. Some of them know me from our early video games.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck in a time warp in those games. My character is in his 30s because that's how old I was when it was released. So they see me and they're like, that looks like him, but he can't be old. Yeah. I've actually heard, like, you look like an older version of Tony Hawk. I'm like, that's pretty much what I am.
You were making $160,000 before most kids got their driver's license. With inflation, that's $500,000 a year. What was it like managing such a large income as a normal kid?
I didn't have very good perspective on it. My dad was trying to guide me and sort of warn me, hey, this might not last forever. And when you're that age and the money comes so consistently, you don't see an end in sight. Yeah. And so I just spent it carelessly. Yeah. I was taking Hawaiian trips with all my friends, like, let's go. You know, I'm paying for everything. And there was no incentive to save.
Why not?
Youth. Yeah. The ignorance of youth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happened and my income fluctuated greatly after that. And it went down and then I had a better appreciation for trying to save, obviously, and I got a second chance. But in those days, the most challenging part was that all of my income was 1099. It was all royalty-based. So taxes were not taken out.
How were you making money? Just like winning? Or
royalties on skateboards and competition earnings. Okay. Some sponsorships, but mostly royalties on licensed products. Okay. So when you get that kind of income, it's not taxed. And then at the end of the year, how much do you want? What do you talk? You know, and I was lucky that my dad was aware of all that. And my older sister was an accountant, actually. She had a CPA. She did taxes for people in the entertainment industry. Yeah. So she could get creative with write-offs. Yeah. So I got lucky in that. Good. But it was a very short duration in the grand scheme of things that I was making money like that. And then it all dropped very immediately in the early 90s.
During that time period where, you know, it was just raining out of the sky, was there a purchase that you made that you look back now that you most regret?
So many. Sharper Image was a big thing back then. Sharper Image was like where all the new tech toys were, and they were super expensive. And I would just go there and blow through the store. Yeah, get whatever was new. And probably the most ridiculous purchase was a tanning bed.
Tanning, that's not good for you.
Because I thought somehow that would be cool to have a tanning bed. And I live in Southern California. Why am I buying a tanning bed?
Just go to the beach.
Because I could.
Knowing that you have spoken openly about, like, you know, I made so many mistakes, was there anything that you did do that you're like, oh, thank goodness I had the wherewithal to do that one thing?
Absolutely. My first property. And that was by suggestion of my dad. During my senior year of high school, I was making good money and he said, I really think you should invest in real estate. And what I heard was you can have your own place, party house. I had his blessing and he was going to help me because I was only 17 when I bought the house. So he had to co-sign for it. Yeah. And then I had roommates that were all the same age and some were still in high school. So, you know, when you're in high school and your parents are out of town and that's where the party is. Yeah. My parents were always out of town. So my house was the party house by default. But I might be exaggerating that a bit. We were relatively responsible, mostly because I couldn't afford to just burn out and party all the time. Yeah. I was required to skate and perform at a high level all the time, like every weekend going to events and doing video shoots and stuff. So
you said you had to perform. What fueled that?
I was just always on the mission to get better at my skating.
It wasn't the money?
From the day one. No, because when I first started, there was no fame and fortune. Right. No one was successful in skating in terms of a actual legitimate career. Yeah. People were successful in skating where they won events and they got some prize money and maybe their picture in the magazine, but no one was was killing it. You didn't get into skateboarding and say, oh, I'm going to be rich and famous. And so my drive was always, I just want to get better at this. I want to master these tricks. And I would see other people do stuff and I want to learn that. I want to learn that. And eventually sort of created my own style and got my own moves. And that was the buzz for me. That was it. And all this other stuff, the money and the success, that was more like incidental and sometimes interfered with the creative process.
Wait, tell me about that. What do you mean interfered?
Because I was so tasked with doing all these events and tours and demos and things. I was on the team called the Bones Brigade. So it's the Bones Brigade tour, US tour, right? We're in a van for 6 weeks at a time, traveling to different skate shops. And then either they have something to skate in their parking lot or we're bringing obstacles in a van. At one point we had a little half pipe that was on a trailer that we would tow in, and you're expected to skate at your full capacity every day for 6 weeks. As much fun as that was, because we're living the dream. Like we get to skate for a living or whatever. You don't get a chance to break out and try new things because that's not the setting for it. Performing in front of hundreds of people.
And you don't want to fail.
Well, you don't want to waste their time with you just learning one trick.
Yeah.
That's not fair to them.
Right, fair.
But at the same time, that's what drove me. So there was conflict.
While you were on tour with the Bones Brigade, did you guys ever talk about how much all of you guys were getting paid to be there?
We all kind of knew that we were all making good money.
Yeah.
All of the tours and things, it was all the same rate.
Oh.
The only fluctuation in our incomes in terms of who was making more was who was selling more skateboards or who was winning more events. I was on the younger end of that team, so I got on the team when I was 12.
There wasn't any tension like, oh, I've been doing this for way longer than Tony has. How can we make the same?
So much of what we did was based on our contest rankings. And that was cut and dry. So no one could argue, well, why is he getting more? Well, he's always in the top 3.
Scoreboard.
That was the only outlet to success, was competition. I zeroed in on learning tricks for competitions, on even a strategy, because I knew that was what the focus was. Not that I enjoyed it that much. It was a means to an end.
I can't wait to hear more, but let's take a moment to talk about how everyone can achieve their ambitions with a little help from SoFi. All-in-one products. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're a girl's worst nightmare, AKA my husband's 5-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, face wash, body wash, 24-hour deodorizer. It might even be window cleaner. Ooh. Here's an all-in-one idea that just makes sense. An all-in-one finance app, because I know all your phones have a little folder on there with a whole mess of financial apps you've downloaded, and you're not opening all of those on a regular basis. That's better. SoFi makes it easy to do all of your banking, borrowing, tracking of your finances, and more all in one place. So you know exactly what's going on with your money all the time. Go to SoFi.com/richerlives to open an account and start getting your money right today. Yeah, like today, like right now. Go ahead, hit pause. We'll still be here. You're living in this golden era, but like you mentioned earlier, things did slow down. And eventually, I was told you put yourself on a $5 a day Taco Bell budget.
Yeah, that's true.
As a Doritos Locos Taco kind of gal myself, that doesn't sound too bad, but how did you make it through such a rough time in the industry?
That first property I bought, that was my saving grace, because I ended up buying another property, kind of getting underwater with my expenses.
Yeah.
I had a big ramp set up there. That was the dream, but I just really was in over my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I took out a second mortgage on the house.
Got it.
To start a skateboard company, of all things. And then ended up selling the house for what I owed. Moved back into the house I bought when I was in high school. And that's when I really...
Wait, so you sold Dream House and kept OG Party House?
And then ended up moving back into that house with a new family, because my son was born in that time. And that's when I really started cutting back on all expenses. And I mean, it was definitely Taco Bell, top ramen, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
You mentioned that you moved your new life, your new family, into the OG house. How did having somebody who depended on you to survive change your POV around money?
It made me hustle like never before and take every odd job I could to make ends meet. I had a really small video editing system, so I would do editing work for other skate companies.
Ooh, yeah, wait, what other odd jobs did you pick up?
I was a consultant for a few Hollywood shoots.
Oh, really?
Because they wanted skateboarding, but I was 24, so I was too old to be the skateboarder in the thing they were doing. In the early 90s especially, skating was considered just a youth sport. So if you're over the age of 18, you're too old. I was 24. Like I was way past what they thought was a prime or even allowable to be a pro skater. My name was on the radar of some Hollywood studios because I had done other work. I had actually done commercials when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so they said, let's get Tony Hawk to see what is possible here. This is just one example, but they said, we want a skater to fly through the frame. That's the parameters they gave me. And so I'm hired as a consultant. I'm at home. I'm building a ramp that's high enough to get where the camera can be sort of eye level and the skater can go through it. And then I build it. I borrow someone's truck. I drive it to Hollywood, set it up in this parking lot, and then go through the frame multiple times until they get the right shot. And then they hired a young skater to do exactly what I just did. But that's what I had to do. It wasn't like I was bitter. I was like, hell yeah, I'm getting paid. Like I'm still doing this.
Yeah.
And I can pay my rent.
Were there any personal finance lessons you learned during this kind of downturn that you're like, I'm going to take this with me forever?
I think the baseline was don't live beyond your means. I thought that I wasn't. I just kept kind of being in denial that, I'm not making as much as I'm spending. And then at some point, I definitely was not making as much as I was spending. And I still had all of these expenses. And I mean, back then, I had a water bill that I had to go make payments on it.
Yeah.
That's when things got really tricky and a little scary.
Yeah.
And it was a wake-up call. You should always be living so that you have savings.
Yeah.
You're going to have savings.
Yeah. Were you managing your own finances at the time or did you have someone helping you, your sister?
So in the 80s, I actually had a business manager.
This was golden era.
Golden era. He was Jim Carrey's business manager and set me up with a few things that I never imagined I'd be able to do. And then he was kind of the first one to see that the sky was falling and my income was dropping. And then he obviously gave me my records and my finances back. So I was doing it, most some help from my dad, but I wasn't doing it well. And still kind of trying to pretend to live the dream. And all of this was just a huge learning lesson for the next time around that I had success. I know that I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I was preparing for my next comeback.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So when it did come back, I was fully prepared to live in a very responsible way.
You were kind of at the top of the game and still had a hard time during this downturn. But for other skaters, my guess is it was probably even more challenging because they may not have been picking up some of that like consulting work or what have you. Was it everybody, let's band together and save skating, or every man for himself?
Everyone was doing whatever they could. And a lot of my peers lost their way. Just the effect it had on their psyche and their confidence and their personality. I mean, there was definitely a lot of heavy drug use and people falling off just because they had everything and then they had nothing.
Yeah.
And it was hard, man. We were living on top of the world. And all of a sudden it's like, do I have to go to a 9 to 5?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
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 And then I had a kid, so I was thrust into full responsibility.
Diapers are expensive.
I mean, everything. For some reason, there was a Japanese shop that wanted to sponsor U.S. skaters back then.
Okay. That's
cool.
We
did not have sponsors, right? So I had this Japanese skate shop as a sponsor, and they would fly me to Tokyo to do exhibitions at their skate shop. I didn't have money for childcare, so I have to bring my son Riley when he was like 3 years old. And then I'd have to convince him to keep himself busy while I skated. So I literally would buy him a new Power Ranger every day.
When things were the darkest they could have been for skaters, you actually chose to double down and start this street team, Birdhouse, acquire other skaters to be part of your crew. What even gave you the gall to do that when things were going badly?
I thought, okay, I'm too old for all this. Or society thinks I'm too old for all this.
Yeah.
The skate industry does. And so I wanted to still be in the mix. I wanted to still be in the industry. So I started a skate company and got a whole group of mostly street skaters as a team. And then I would just go out with them, filming them. Like we'd go out to schoolyards on the weekends. Stacy Peralta was my mentor. He's the one who put me on the Bones Brigade team.
Yeah.
And it is exactly what he had done in his skate career. When he felt like his career as a skateboarder was starting to fade a bit, he started a company. Because he knew that he had a good eye for talent. He knew the skate industry and he knew what would make a well-rounded team.
Yeah.
When I first started thinking about this, I actually had to confide in Stacy that this is the direction I think I'm going. As disappointed as he was because I'm no longer on his team, he said, how can I stop you?
Yeah.
It's what I did.
Yeah.
I'm the example you're living by. The only thing that I made a mistake about in that time was that I didn't value my position as a skater. I thought that I was more, that I would be better behind the scenes, that I had a good team going.
Yeah.
I'm doing all the creative, the ads, the artwork, the video. And at some point, one of our skaters actually, who is a very amazing creative force, Jeremy Klein, who started Hookups brand and a bunch of other stuff, he told me, you're better at being a skater for Birdhouse than running Birdhouse. You can't do it all. And to be honest, you're not that good at it. and he was right.
He's like, give me the pen, give me the camera.
But he did, yeah. And he did the artwork for Birdhouse for a whole decade.
Yeah.
In fact, during our heyday. So he was right, but it was hard to hear, but it was valuable because I would have rather been skating anyway. I just thought that my days were over. I was old. I was
probably because that's what everybody else was telling you, even if you didn't believe it yourself. Why do you think you had like the attitude that no one would care? I feel like
so in the early 90s, everything was street. So everyone had kind of moved on from the aerials and the McTwists and things because street was what was available. Parks were closing and it was more like that's accessible, that's more tangible. Go out, do a kickflip. You can do that in your driveway, right? So my specialty was these big ramps that hardly existed.
Yeah.
And that weren't even relatable to these kids who are learning to kickflip. So what I was doing was considered just antiquated. I was the main representative of the old guard of the 80s. And it was like, that guy still wears pads. He still rides half pipes. Like, where's a half pipe?
Obviously, starting Birdhouse was not easy. How did you raise funds to start a company, or was that just all of your own money?
It was half my money and half my partner's money. My partner was Per Wielander, who was an ex-pro skater as well. He had a better mind for business, and he wasn't trying to still make a career as a skateboarder. He had already kind of let that go. And so he said, look, I'll run the business, I'll run the office, you run the team, you run the creative. It was hard. I would say for the first at least 4 years, we barely turned a profit.
Yeah.
All of our talks were always, how do we cut costs?
Yeah.
How do we cut our salaries? How do we get by? And then I would say somewhere around 95 or 96, we had serious discussions about just shutting down.
Were you guys in agreement? Was there one of you that was like, I'm out or I'm in? Or
it came more from him because he saw the hard numbers.
And he was scared.
And I was more of the dissenting voice where it was like, let's just keep, let's see what happens. Like, I feel like the X Games were starting. I could sense there was renewed interest in skating. So I definitely kept him hanging on a little bit longer. But he and I both struggled for a while. And then I would say somewhere around 97 is when things really
picked back,
started to turn around. And a lot of that was due to X Games, MTV. Skating just kind of came back in the fold, and people saw how it evolved. Yeah, where it had become a more urban activity, not just relegated to skate parks and pools and half pipes. It was like your local handrail, the bench, like all of that is the skate park.
How did the experience of getting Birdhouse off the ground and dealing with the team change your goals?
It didn't change my goals. It made me realize how much work is going to go into it. We had to go on these tours. I mean, the tours that we went on as Birdhouse, it was the most budget. There were 5 or 6 of us sharing one room, one hotel room.
How?
Well, hopefully it's with 2 beds, and then you take the mattresses off and you put them next to the box springs. So you have kind of 4 beds.
Wait, but the box springs are like really hard.
Yeah, they suck, but that's how it was. It didn't all feel like a struggle because we got to skate. Like that was the goal. So how did I feel? I felt great that I created something that allowed us to keep doing this, even though it was on totally different terms. None of those years feel like some great trauma.
Because you were living the dream.
Absolutely. We made our own schedule. We had the agency. We were still having fun, and we were still breaking out and skating on the sides and going to downtowns and ripping around at midnight. And, no one was telling us what to do. And that's why we chose skateboarding.
I do want to take a quick pivot and actually talk about not IRL skating.
Okay.
But Activision and Neversoft ended up developing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And before you signed on, I need to know, how did you put a price tag on your face?
To put it bluntly, I didn't. I was out of my mind excited to work on a video game. I was a child of the original video games. I'm talking about Pong and television.
Like Atari stuff.
Pac-Man, Missile Command. That was my childhood.
Yeah.
And so when I got the opportunity to actually work on a game that focused on skating, I was all in. The money was the furthest thing from my mind. I wanted something that would be fun for skateboarders to play. Something that actually represented authentic skateboarding. Every other game, they had their little quirks and funny things, but they didn't truly represent what skateboarding was or the feel of it.
Yeah. How much control did you actually have in developing the video game? Like, could you say, I don't like this, let's change it?
I had final approval.
Oh, wow.
Over everything.
So that's a lot.
No, I mean, and I wasn't a dictator.
Yeah.
Like I said,
You seem like a pretty chill guy.
Neversoft was just the best partner to have at that time. Neversoft was the developer. They wanted it to be authentic too.
Yeah.
They would take field trips to the skate park once a week. None of the programmers skated, but they just wanted them to feel what it was like. And they ended up having like a kickflip challenge. One guy broke his ankle. It's a different time now, but it was full on. By the time it was released, it was the coolest skate game ever.
Yeah.
That's all I aspired for. I mean, I knew that skating was still niche. I knew that, this wasn't going to be the next Mario Brothers, but I was proud of it. And I knew that skaters would like it. And I was like, that's cool. That's going to be fun. Immediately, they called and said, all right, we're doing the next one. Because this one's already getting great reviews and we know it's going to be a hit.
How did royalties work?
I got a signing fee, which was amazing. And then because it was such a unique project and one that they didn't expect a whole lot of success, I had a pretty good royalty rate that was ongoing. It wasn't like there's some ceiling to it.
Yeah.
But the first inkling I got that it was going to be a hit was right before the release. They offered me $500,000 as a buyout for future royalties. Yeah. Oh. I had never heard someone say $500,000 into my face for anything.
Right.
So to me, it sounded like $500 gazillion.
Right.
But I was in a position that I just bought a new house.
Okay.
And Birdhouse was finally in the black. And X Games was happening. I was getting a lot of opportunities. And I felt like I'm actually doing all right. Like I'm living below my means. And so I said, I'm gonna let it ride.
You didn't take it?
No.
Oh, I mean, that has to have paid off for you, right?
Sure. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons I'm here.
As every iteration of Tony Hawk Pro Skater got more and more progressively popular, did you make more money? Did you get a signing fee every time?
As successful as it became, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it changed my life. Finances, obviously, but just recognition, longevity.
Yeah.
It allowed me to skate on my own terms implicitly. I was able to do whatever, build crazy ramp. I could afford it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
your own half pipe.
My own half pipe I bought 22 years ago, mostly with obviously my Activision income.
Yeah.
It's the greatest thing I've ever bought.
Yeah.
I was riding it 24 hours ago. It just allowed me to explore what would be possible in skating while having this fantastical success with video games. It was amazing. I mean, it still is. If you hear someone say my name, it's not certain that they're talking about me as a person or they're talking about a video game. It's more likely they're talking about a video game series.
Are you good at it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You are?
Yeah. Let's just say I can finish any of the games without using any cheats.
Okay, that's something.
Solid. I'm solid.
Yeah. The game actually had a really big impact on music and culture and skate culture, even outside of the digital world. What are you most proud of with that game?
That it introduced people to skate culture and that they embraced it and inspired some to dive into it, to learn it for real. The generation that played that game, many of them are now very successful skaters.
Yeah.
And the tricks that they're doing are based off the game. Like the stuff that we put in the game as a joke, the combinations that you can do were things that were like, this isn't even possible. But
this is not
anyway.
Possible by physics.
That is what they do in competition. Like it's amazing.
Let's stop here and talk about how everyone at home can drop into their financially independent era. Have you ever looked in the lost and found for any of your money that's gone missing? Maybe you should, because over 30 million people have unclaimed money or assets, including cash sitting in dormant bank accounts. Can you really know how you're doing financially if you can't even remember all of your accounts? Yeah, I didn't think so. It's so much easier to keep track of your money when it's all in one place. That's why you should switch to SoFi. With SoFi, you can bank, borrow, track your finances, and more all in one place. You can even add in accounts like your 401k, IRAs, plus track the value of your car and house. That way, none of your hard-earned money ends up in that lost and found. Go to SoFi.com/richerlives to start keeping track of all your money today. So as the video game is just gaining more and more success, I'd love to know kind of what's going on with your family during this time and how the success of the game also impacted their day-to-day.
Well, it was more that it impacted my attention.
Oh, tell me
because
about
suddenly I just had all kinds of crazy opportunities, and it was hard for me to shake the mindset that I had where I had to hustle to make ends meet. I had to take every single opportunity.
Yeah.
How could I possibly say no when it's bigger than ever?
Mm-hmm.
And I got lost in it. And so they kind of lost me in that. It's kind of the fire I had to walk through to get to the other side to realize what's truly important.
How were you ultimately able to eventually balance your work and...
I learned to say no. It's so hard. It's hard, you know, especially, you know, when you had to struggle to pay your bills.
Yeah.
And then suddenly things are wildly successful. How could you turn it down?
Was there like a pivotal moment? Like you missed like a kid's graduation or like anything like that?
I think that I was in denial of it for too long. And then at some point wised up.
Yeah.
And realized that I can still provide for family, but I can balance my time and find time for myself. You know, that's the other thing is trying to, like, my skating is still my escape.
Your first grandson was recently born. When are we getting him on the board?
That's up to his dad.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
You're not going to be like, okay, well, grandpa's going to take...
Well, his dad is a pro skater. I got his dad on a skateboard when he was in diapers.
Right.
So it will be up to him to make that distinction, but I have a feeling it'll be very soon.
Have you ever thought about returning to like competition?
No.
Oh.
Especially after I broke my leg. I broke my leg about 2.5 years ago, and that changed my skating, that changed my outlook. I was still skating as hard as ever and doing the same tricks I'd done when I was in my 20s. I was 53 and I just kept doing it, and I around and found out, like, you can't keep doing that at your age. And if you fall, it's not just a bump or a bruise, it's a broken femur.
Yeah.
I worked through a very difficult recovery on that and came out to realize I'm not gonna be what I was. And this is the baseline of skating, and I should just be thankful for any of it. Every ollie is a gift. You know what I mean? It really is. And I'm not trying to move the needle the way that I used to or prove anything.
What advice would you give a skater, a young skater, who wants to be more than just the best kid at the skate park?
Get out of your comfort zone and learn all the techniques, even the ones that maybe you weren't interested in, because that's going to benefit you later on. If you truly want to become a professional skateboarder, you're going to be put into situations where you're out of your comfort zone or you didn't know that this is what was part of the job. But if you have practiced these things and you have some foundational skills other than what you're known for, you're going to get by and you're going to excel.
So today, obviously, skateboarding is a lot more mainstream than it was when you first started. I want to hear what excites you about the next era of skateboarding.
The inclusion and the accessibility of skating to anyone. And the idea that women are encouraged to skate, that if a kid chooses to skateboard, his parents are going to say, that's bad for you, that's bad influence, we don't want you there. Their parents are going to be like, hell yeah, let's go learn kickflips.
Yeah.
Let's go skate together. Like that, all of that is amazing to me because I lived in a time when it was the exact opposite. To see skateboarding thriving in places like Uganda, Ethiopia, in Japan, China, like that I never imagined. I'm just thankful that I get to be still alive to bear witness to that.
Yeah. Tony, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like I've learned so much. Your story is so inspiring, and I'm just so grateful you shared it with me and everybody watching.
Well, thanks for having me.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe so you can be the first to learn about our next guest. See you next time.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, here's your new Power Ranger.
Okay, one take, Tony.
Oh man, why do we gotta deal with this?
See ya!